Okay, hi everyone. My name is Chelisea, and I'm a study abroad advisor at UW-Stout. And we are very lucky today to have a Gilman Alumni Ambassador, Jadalyn Martinez. I want to highlight that we actually have our very own Gilman recipient this year as well, Dion Cannon, who we had the pleasure of recording a testimonial with him, which you can find on our YouTube channel. And we also held a Gilman information session earlier this week that is available there as well. But I'm so happy to have you here, Jadalyn, to talk more and to really give that first person perspective and tips for our students. A couple of housekeeping items. I am recording this session and we will be making it available on our Canvas page for our Stout Study Abroad Fair. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that introduction. So hi, everyone. Again, my name is Jadalyn Martinez, and I'm a Gilman Alumni Ambassador. I am from Wisconsin as well. I grew up in Milwaukee and went to Marquette University, and also currently work there as well. So I'm really happy to be here tonight and to share more about the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship and my personal experience. So before we get started, I want to know, what the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship is. So it's a program of the U.S. Department of State with funding provided by the U.S. government and administered by the Institute of International Education. It's actually one of the largest undergraduate scholarship program supports for U.S. students of high financial need to participate in study abroad programs and international internships. Gilman is one of many vehicles to help students go abroad through scholarships. It's a program, but it's also a lifelong network. And you also get to give back to your community when you return. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, it is a program in the U.S. Department of State, and one of the core objectives of the Gilman is to have students promote mutual understanding between the people of the U.S. and people of other countries by facilitating this opportunity that's academic, professional, and a cultural exchange. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit more about my experience. So I was awarded the Gilman in 2015, and I went to Madrid, Spain. Entering college, I always knew that I wanted to study abroad. That was just high on my priority list. I had met teachers at my high school that had done Peace Corps and other study abroad programs, and that just really sparked something in me that I wanted to do that as well, but wasn't sure financially how that was going to work out for me. And so I kept putting it off. And it wasn't until my junior year when I was actually awarded a small scholarship to go to El Salvador for about 5 days with my university through a delegation and serving as an interpreter. That really reignited my passion to study abroad and to experience life in an international setting. And so shortly after that trip, I went right into the Office of International Education at my university and told them how badly I wanted to study abroad. And I just was so concerned about finances and not being able to afford it. And they actually mentioned the Gilman scholarship and that I would be a great candidate for it. And so I think it really takes, you going to these kinds of webinars and also taking that initiative of I really do want to have this opportunity, but how can I get there? How can I afford it? And I think the Gilman is one of those programs. So another point about my study abroad is that I took all of my courses in Spanish, except for one. So I had 5 courses, and that was just a great experience. It was business Spanish and Spanish in contemporary short stories and Spanish in the golden age of drama. It was just different kinds of contexts within Spanish that really improved my skills. Not just speaking, but listening and writing. It was really a great experience for me, and it really boosted my confidence in speaking the language as a heritage speaker as well. And I also got the opportunity to volunteer. And so I knew coming in that I wanted to be a part of the community, not just a tourist, not just an exchange student. I really wanted to get into the community in Madrid. And so I volunteered as an ESL teacher and also at a local food pantry. And I think this was really transformative for me because I saw I really enjoyed ESL teaching, and I also learned that that could be a global career, and that really took me places because after I came back from my study abroad and I graduated, I decided I wanted to go back again. And so I became an ESL teacher in public schools in Spain for the next 3 years. And I also studied in Shenzhen, China for about 6 months before the pandemic. And so I really honestly believe if I had not been awarded the Gilman, I don't think that would have been my trajectory. And so I'm so, so grateful and really encourage you all to apply if eligible. Next slide, please. So another highlight of my trip is I got to travel more than ever before, and I also started traveling on my own. And so I decided that there were places in Spain that I wanted to see. And if there wasn't a friend to come with me, I would go by myself. And so this is just a picture of me in San Sebastian in Basque Country, Spain. It's a beautiful region there. And I went on my own and I just had a stranger take my picture. And I was just so happy to be there and just have the opportunity to take a weekend away from my studies and just kind of explore the country in a different region. And they also speak another language beyond Spanish there, which is Basque. And so that was very interesting to get that bit of nuance that I probably wouldn't have even heard of had I not studied abroad there in Spain. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I want to talk about Gilman's impact. So 47% were first generation college students, and that is me included. I am a first generation college student, and so higher education was already tricky enough to navigate. And so I'm so grateful for programs like Gilman that allow encourage first gens, to study abroad. 65% represented were racial or ethnic minority groups, and 33,000 US undergraduates of high financial need and they went to 150 countries, and over 1,300 US institutions were represented. So the Gilman tries to get a wide variety of students from all over the country to study abroad, but also to go to different countries. So not just your traditional study abroad spaces, but maybe ones that students usually don't think about. Next slide, please. So there can be scholarships up to 5,000, and this can be at any point in the academic year. So from fall to winter, you can use the Gilman to study abroad. There's also another component to the Gilman, which is the Critical Need Language Award. So this is optional. So this is up to an additional 3,000 plus access to proficiency testing. And please note that it does require an additional essay to be considered for this award. So these are the current Critical Need Language Awards. And I really, really encourage you to apply for this extra scholarship if you are studying a critical need language. It's really important. And even if you're not studying a critical need language, please do, if you are going to a country that speaks another language other than your native language, immerse yourself and really learn that language because you get to understand the culture and the country you're in much, much better. So let me get into a little bit about eligibility. So to be eligible for the scholarship, you have to be a US citizen. You have to be an undergraduate student. You have to be a federal Pell Grant recipient, and you have to be a part of a credit-bearing program. So I know I mentioned in the beginning that the Gilman gives scholarships to students to study abroad, but also internships. And so internships are allowed as long as they are credit-bearing. So make sure that you're working with study abroad and also your academic advisor to make sure that it's a credit-bearing internship. It should also be in a country with an overall travel advisory level 1 or 2. And then you have to have a minimum of 3 weeks or 21 days at a 4-year institution, or 2 weeks or 14 days if at a 2-year institution. So I do want to note, right, I do want to situate us where we are now. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and the whole world is facing this right now. And so I do want to note that virtual internship programs are included in the list of eligible programs for the upcoming application cycle. And I also want to note that if you're in a country where you choose to study abroad in 2021 is at a level 3 or 4 only due to COVID-19 at the time of application. the Gilman program will still consider that eligible. In the event that an applicant is selected for the Gilman Scholarship, and if the destination country is still at a level 3 or 4, even if only due to COVID-19, by the time the program starts, then the recipient will be required to change their program location, and the Gilman will work with you with that. All right, another part of the Gilman is the Gilman-McCain Scholarship eligibility. So this is very similar to the normal Gilman Scholarship, but this is for child dependents of active duty service members. So a lot of the requirements are similar, except for obviously that you have to be a dependent child of an active duty military member, and you also have to be a recipient of any type of Title IV federal financial aid. So this graphic kind of breaks it down and shows you what's similar about the Gilman-McCain compared to the Gilman. So what's the same is, again, the selection criteria, the essays, deadlines, certifications, and the benefits that you receive after becoming a Gilman Scholar. But what's different is the eligibility that I mentioned, the application, the panels, and also the Gilman-McCain is, if you're awarded, it's a $5,000 scholarship flat, whereas the Gilman is up to 5,000, and then for the Gilman McCain up to 100 awards each year. Okay, so how to apply? So you have to do your online application. So you have to select your study abroad program and have apply to a study abroad program at your host institution. You have to upload essays, and it will be up to 3 depending on if you apply for the critical need language. You'll need your transcripts, and you'll also need to select your advisors. So please work closely with your Office of International Education, because they'll be so helpful with this. And then after you move forward, and if you move forward in the scholarship program, you'll need certifications from your study abroad advisor and also a financial aid advisor. Okay, so this is the heart of the application, and the heart of your applications are the essays. So your first essay will be your statement of purpose, and I really want you to think about this as a personal interview, right? So the Gilman staff can't interview all the applicants, so this is really your time to shine and be authentic and specific to who you are, to your goals, to the program that you're applying for to study abroad, and how it will impact you academically, professionally, and personally. And also talk about how you will meet challenges studying abroad, right? So studying abroad is a very unique and transformative experience, as I've mentioned before, but there are going to be challenges, right? This is not your native country. It might not be your native language. And so you're going to be confronted with some barriers. So talk about how you're going to meet those challenges, and possibly talk about how you're going to meet those, how you've met those challenges in the past. That might help with your statement of purpose. Just remember to be authentic. And I cannot say enough to make sure you reread your essays multiple times, and also go, if your institution has a writing center, go there, maybe have a faculty member look over it. If the study abroad office is available, an advisor to look over it, making sure that it flows well, that it shows who you are, and that it grabs the attention of the reader. Your second essay will be your community impact essay. So this is how you give back to the community, as I mentioned early on in the presentation. So this is you talking about how you're going to be an effective citizen diplomat while abroad, and then how will you give back by inspiring others to study abroad. So this is where you're going to design a plan of action to complete your follow-on service project. So a requirement of the Gilman is your follow-on service project, which is within the first 6 months of returning from your program, you must complete this project and do outreach and promotion of the Gilman Scholarship and international education in some capacity. So really talk about how you're going to do that. Who are you going to talk to? Think about your audience. What tools are you going to use? What's the timeline? When are you going to do it? Be very, very specific. So I guess I can give you an example of what I did. So when sitting down and thinking about the application, I thought about my network at my university, and I was an RA. And so I thought maybe I can talk to residence halls. And there was a specific residence hall that spoke Spanish. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go there and talk to them about my program, talk to them about Gilman and why they should go to a Spanish speaking country to improve their Spanish language skills. So I ended up doing that. I was very specific. I also said I would be a volunteer for the Office of International Education at my university and go to study abroad affairs. Give my availability for students who wanted to speak one-on-one with me as well. And these are all things that I did. And so again, just being very specific and think about the leadership that you have at your university and that you're involved in, and also perhaps think about how you could give back to your community. Maybe there's a school or your previous school that you want to talk to, or an organization that you want to talk to in the community to kind of promote this program and get the word out there that this is available. So the third essay, again, is optional, and this would be if you're applying for the Critical Need Language Award. So first, check off, is it a critical need language? Make sure to check back on the Gilman website to keep up to date. Is it predominantly spoken in the country you're going to? How does it relate to your academic or career goals? And then talk about your motivation for improving language proficiency. Again, hitting those points of academic, professional, and personal. And so although Spanish was not considered a critical need language, I definitely incorporated that into my personal statement. And so how I thought about it was how I grew up in a bilingual household, but that English was primarily spoken. And so that I still felt I needed that extra experience to really be fluent in, especially in writing, and that opportunity to go to Madrid would give me that. And so I was very vocal about my appreciation for the Spanish language and how it would affect me, again, academically, personally, and professionally. So make sure you're taking that into this essay if you're writing it. Okay, so a little bit about the selection criteria. So they want to talk about, the panel goes over the impact of the program and the destination on the student's academic and career trajectory. Also, the community impact abroad, and then how you will fulfill that upon your return. Your academic preparedness, so how are you doing in school? How are you keeping up? Your diversity of your background and your experiences, make sure to touch on that. We all know, the Gilman knows that you're eligible for the Pell Grant, and do mention that, but also talk about, you know, some experiences that you take with you going into college. Like, again, I was a first gen woman of color, and navigating higher education was difficult for me. So I definitely did mention that in my essays. And also talk to, if you do the essay for the critical need language, your commitment to proficiency. So talk about the classes you've been taking, maybe talk about exchanges that you've been doing and the exchanges you intend on doing when you're there, and how you're going to immerse yourself really in the language so that you really learn it. All right, so I want to talk about some deadlines. So the deadline is coming up on October 6th, for any abroad program starting in January 21 to December 2021. So even though it's a couple weeks away, if you're interested, please get started on the application as soon as possible, because there are quite a few components and you do need to get your transcripts, which can take a while depending on your university. So make sure to get started right away, and again, get a second and third and possibly fourth opinion on your essays, making sure that you're being authentic and it's flowing well and that you're really showcasing who you are. And then the next deadline for broad programs starting in May 2021 to April 2022 would be in March, and that'll be announced next year. And so the other deadlines talk about when the advisor deadline would be, which was the second Tuesday in October. And remember, it's 11:59 Pacific time, so please take that into account. And I would suggest turning in the application at least a day before the deadline, just to make sure that you have all components and there's no technology errors. So a couple more tips. Again, create a compelling story that ties your past, present, and future to highlight the impact the scholarship will have on you. And also, again, like I mentioned, start the application early, be your truest self, and have confidence that you are worthy. Also, for your follow-on service project, again, think about your community, think about local schools, think of how you personally heard about the Gilman and how you could tell others about it. And I can, if you don't apply, you won't get it. So a lot of times really get we really feel self-doubt and think that we're not good enough for these programs. And you are. Please apply for them, because if you don't, you automatically get a no. So please encourage yourself to apply for this program. So some benefits after being awarded the Gilman, again, this is a lifelong network that you get. And so you get non-competitive eligibility to work for the US government. And this is great because it does make it easier to get hired and in the US government. You also get access to the Gilman Scholar Network, which is kind of our version of LinkedIn. And so there, I'm highly involved in posting and also meeting other Gilman scholars and learning about new job opportunities, workshops, conferences. It's really a great network to get in touch with. Also, there's an alumni ambassador program, which I'm a part of, which is volunteer based. And what we do is we promote the scholarship because we really believe in the scholarship and know how it impacted us personally. And we really want to spread that message and get as many students applying as possible, especially underrepresented students who traditionally don't go to study abroad. There's also seminars and career workshops given, and there, you expand your career possibilities and your skill development. So this is, again, a lifelong program that you'll be a part of. Also, stay connected with us. So we're on all major social media platforms. We also have the Gilman Global Experience blog. I wrote for it a couple weeks ago. It's called Promises Worth Keeping, if you want to check it out. And every couple of weeks there's an updated blog, and so really check that out to hear Gilman scholars and their experience. And we do have Gilman scholars who go abroad during their abroad term write for the blog as well, and you can also follow the hashtag at Gilman Scholarship. All right, so there's just some extra resources for international exchange. So if you're not eligible for the Gilman, or if you're thinking about other study abroad programs, maybe now or in the future, think about other resources that we have, like the Critical Language Scholarship Program. There's the Fulbright U.S. Student Program. There's a Boren Scholarship and Fellowship. So you can find that at studyabroad.state.gov. And again, I really encourage you to check out these programs because they're amazing as well. And we also have a lot of Gilman scholars who've gone on to do these programs and receive these scholarships too. And if you have any more information, I'm going to leave the Gilman contact there. You can always go on our website, give us a call to kind of answer any questions you may have. Staff is really, really friendly, and we really want to hear from you and see how we can help you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jadalyn. If I may, I might keep you on here for a few more minutes to ask you some questions. One thing I wanted to go back to was you talking about being a first-generation college student, also having a motivation to kind of explore your heritage also as part of this experience. I wanted to just flag for our students that we actually held a session earlier today with Stout students who are study abroad alumni who were first generation college students to talk specifically about their experience and some of the questions and issues and tips that they had. So Jadalyn, can you perhaps go back to that a little bit more? And I was just wondering, from your family, for example, what did they think about you going abroad, and even before that, when you were just considering it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And thank you for bringing that up. And I'm so glad that Scout hosted an informational like that and got to hear from alum who have done that and gone through the process. For me personally, I think when I was talking about it, and I was talking about it even before college, I was talking about it in high school, and that this was something I wanted to do, and maybe I wanted to do Peace Corps or some kind of program. And I remember my family kind of not taking it seriously and thinking it was kind of just, she's just, she has it in her head that she wants to do that, but she really won't. And coming from a Puerto Rican background, and my family, we're really close, really family oriented. And so when I mentioned that I wanted to study abroad and that I was going forward for applying for the scholarship and this might be a real opportunity, there were a lot of fears. Fear of perhaps not being able to help me in case of an emergency, fear of me not being able to cope so far away and in a different country that wasn't my own. And so there was real fears there. But as I went through the application process and also talked with my study abroad advisor on offering my parents resources, like real resources, like the travel advisory, the U.S. State website, and things like that, and also having all the contact information of my host family, of my institution, of extra contacts, just in case they needed to get on hold with me, and also even just as simply as establishing WhatsApp on their phone, Skype, things like that, so they could get into contact with me, really put them more at ease, that they could reach me and that they could check in with me and know that I was okay. And I personally checked in with them at least once a week to tell them that I was okay or what was going on and to show them that I was having fun and that I was really enjoying my experience. So it did take time and it did take them showing them resources that they could have to feel comfortable. But I think also what was unique is that even though Puerto Rico is part of the US, it's still different. It still often feels like a country of its own. And so my mom moved over here when she was about 14 years old, and my stepfather is from Mexico. And so I feel like I got a very small glimpse of what they felt, that culture shock and going to another country and overcoming barriers and even language barriers because there were some words in Spain Spanish that I didn't understand was just really unique and just really eye-opening. And it felt like I could connect with their experiences better and connect with my heritage a little bit better. And so, yeah, that was my experience.
Thank you. Well, I love seeing your photo of San Sebastian there because my actual first study abroad experience was a 5-week program in San Sebastian for a Spanish immersion. For me, it was actually, learning Spanish for the first time, learning
Mm,
Spanish as a second language. So I guess I wanted to touch on that because Spanish was one of your first languages as
mm.
in a bilingual household. So what was it like? You mentioned, of course, there's some different terminology and different some grammatical differences. What was it like learning Spanish and improving your Spanish really more um, in Spain?
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. It was a journey. I think I had to adjust my ear. That's what I always say. I would adjust my ear to the accent and to the pace. I was always adjusting that, and I did it fairly quickly because in Puerto Rico and my family they do speak quite fast, so that
Yes,
wasn't
they
really
do.
hard for me to understand. But just some of the slang and colloquialisms, I was still getting adjusted to and asking a lot of questions of like, what does that mean? What did you say? And that those expressions I think that enrich a culture and enrich a language, and it's very interesting to see how one language can just go and be so nuanced in other countries and in Spain and even regionally. That was definitely something I experienced, and I'm sure you did as well. Even learning the way that they may speak Spanish and their accent and their colloquialism will be different in a place like San Sebastian in Basque Country than for say the south of Spain, like in Malaga. Um, and so it was really interesting. And the nice thing about Madrid is that it's an international city. And so I was actually very pleasantly surprised about how many Latinx communities live there. And so I found whole neighborhoods of Dominicans, of Cubans. I would go to their restaurants and sit down and feel at home because the food is so similar to what I eat at home and the music. And so it was just kind of learning about Spain Spanish a little bit more and also feeling connected because people that felt like almost related to me were living there as well. So it was really interesting. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, well, it's bringing me back. I also had a wonderful time in Spain. Um, I was going to ask you, looking back now, you talked about as a big personal benefit that you were able to maybe connect with your family in a different way. Um, for you academically and professionally, what are the biggest impacts that you've seen from your experience?
Yeah, so as a first gen and also a low income student, handling finances in university was difficult for me. And so I always had to maintain a full-time job in addition to full-time studies. And that was very difficult for me to juggle. And my study abroad was the first time and the only semester I didn't have to work. To pay for my studies. And so that really impacted me academically. I saw my grades improve, actually. I really did really, really well academically that semester because I felt like I was so present and enjoying my classes and enjoyed being challenged, that I excelled even more so. And I also had that luxury of not having to work and worry about how am I going to juggle school and work at the same time. So that was definitely a benefit for me. And then professionally, again, as I mentioned, I volunteered as a ESL teacher there when I was studying abroad. It was a community ESL program at the institution I was at, which was St. Louis University, but in Madrid. And I just was really passionate about it. I had great students. They were really engaged. They really liked the curriculum that I was making. And I thought maybe this could be a career for me. Maybe this is a way I could develop myself professionally, but also see the world and also come back here if I wanted. And I ended up doing that. And I graduated. I did a program called Auxiliares de Conversación, which is through the Spanish ministry. And I didn't want to stay in one place. I really wanted to see Spain even more. And so I went from Valladolid in the north to back to Madrid because I always have love for Madrid, and then down to the south in Malaga. And that was just such a great experience. And I still have connections with staff and students till this day from that. And then I decided, hey, I'll be a little bit, I'm a little too comfortable in Spain. I know it a little bit too well. Maybe I should try something else. And so that was my thought process when I went to teach in Shenzhen, China, that I really wanted to broaden my experiences, possibly learn Mandarin, which I was learning at the time I was there, and experience a new culture and really challenge myself as an educator and also as a person, because it was definitely a interesting and I think culture shock that I experienced there a little bit more so than I did in Spain.
Mm. Well, I liked your comment about, still being in touch with people that you met and worked with there. I think as I've gotten to know more Gilman scholars, it's one thing that you do well is you network. And that's another aspect of the program that I think is so valuable that I don't think at first you're thinking about that, $5,000.
Yeah.
But really, it's also that network that you can be, asking for mentorship, through the program, that you can be reaching out to other people who studied in your career area or in the country that you were. I had a colleague say that those sort of unicorn jobs, like the best that you have in your heart, that this would be the best job for me, those come along typically because of somebody
Mm-hmm.
and that they know, oh, I think so and so would be good at that. I'm going to let them know that this job is being posted right now. So I think that is a huge benefit of this program. I wanted to ask you another, just kind of a lighter question.
Yeah.
Um, is there something that happened while you were abroad that was really funny, or that you made a huge mistake and but you look back now and like, oh, that was such a good experience?
Oh my God, probably so many. Let me think. Mm, uh, I think just I think getting lost a lot.
Yes.
My first I think my first month. So I was on a budget and I really wanted to immerse myself. So I didn't even end up purchasing a SIM. So I kind of relied on my memory and like those maps that you can download on your phone that are free, things like that. And so they only work so well. And so I kept getting lost and lost. And so just having to ask people in my neighborhood, and I think I asked the same person within the day because there'll just be people who walk around. It's a culture of walking in Spain. They walk to get groceries, they walk to the doctor, they walk everywhere. And I think that person was just like, again, you're lost again. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, could you please direct me to this place? So, but I think it was good for me because it got me out of my shell and talking to locals and just having some friendly banter and just assistance because it's a new place and you need to figure it out and sometimes you need to rely on the locals to get you there. So
Yeah. And I think those mistakes, especially language mistakes that you make, I mean, they're so embarrassing in the moment, but you're not going to forget that word again. I made the mistake of calling a monk a monkey, monja.
oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I will never forget that difference of those two words again.
yeah,
Um,
it can be like something super simple as just like the ending that you just like a or o and you just mess it up and it's a completely different word. So I've definitely done that.
yes. Well, we're kind of coming up on the end of our session here. So I just wanted to ask if you have any other final comments or tips or messages for the Stout students that might consider applying for the Gilman.
Yeah. I would say if you're eligible, please apply. Start as soon as possible and don't be afraid to ask for help. That's what we're here for. And also your study abroad office. Ask for that help and that assistance to look over your essays, make sure you have the application components. I think that matters. And also just, if it's not the right opportunity right now, if you think this is something you want to save for the future, then make sure to write it down and come back to it and check on the Gilman program or even other scholarship programs like I mentioned. They're out there, and I think oftentimes scholarship funding goes unclaimed because people believe that they're not worthy of getting it. And I want to tell you that you are. I had that feeling for years and years and years. I almost made it to my senior year without studying abroad because I thought that someone like me couldn't get that far, and I had to really work against that thought and say, no, I am worthy. I do deserve this. I'm going to try. At least I'm going to try. And I got it. And so I'm so grateful for just pushing myself to do that. And so just motivate yourself. You're worthy of it.
Oh, that's wonderful. In closing, I would just want to echo what you said that we absolutely are here as a resource for students. You can email us at studyabroad@uwstout.edu. My name is Chella Saya, and I would be your contact for the Gilman Scholarship. I'd also encourage you to check out our YouTube channel because we do have the recent videos with Dion Cannon, the Stout student who just received the Gilman and is using it for a virtual course this fall. We hope to hear from you. We hope that you apply, and we'd be so happy to help you in that process. So thank you so much, Jada Lynn.
Thank you so much, Alicia, and to UW Stout for inviting me to speak.
Very welcome. Thank you.